I can bring you in warm. Or I can live rank all the Disney Star Wars era live action TV shows. No, I don't know. Is that an option?
Yeah, rank your.
All right, go.
them.
Go. Well, obviously, we're going to go. We go Andor. It just starts going. It starts going down. He's like, what about Book of Boba Fett?
Now, come on.
We got the highs, we got the lows.
Don't forget the other show.
That's it. Just blast
All
them.
those episodes they
Obi-Wan.
blend together with Mando. How am I supposed to tell?
What a
Welcome
great start.
back to the Star Wars Guys podcast. As always, we're your hosts, Mike.
Hello there.
Myself, Nate. Hello there. And you know him well, Uncle.
Where did that come from?
Well, everyone
Hold on.
knows. Well, that's the thing is people
Hello
still
there.
don't. The reason Nate and I have to introduce ourselves every week is people don't know who
People
we are.
don't know.
But
Yeah.
obviously,
Obviously.
it's without saying.
Yeah.
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 Needs no introduction.
Needs no introduction.
And now
always.
you can't go back on it.
Isn't
now,
it funny?
'cause
Needs
it's
no
been every
introduction
episode.
always precedes an introduction.
Yes.
The one who needs no introduction, you should just stop.
Yeah.
When you have to say
Obviously, he
anything.
needs
Yeah.
no introduction, and here he is for everyone who does not know who he is.
We're excited for today's episode. We are with Andor wrapping. We are diving into some final thoughts there, but also just talking all the live-action Star Wars TV shows. We're going to do a bit of a ranking. We're going to talk about somewhat of an end of an era with coming up. With
Just Ahsoka season 2 is the only thing out there.
Season 2 is the last live-action show that's at least announced. So live-action Star Wars TV is somewhat coming to an end of an era, at least for the time being, it seems. There's nothing announced, so might be a while before we get the next TV show. So we wanted to discuss it all and break it down and give our ranking and just talk about the things we liked, the things maybe we didn't like as much, and get into it.
Hey, when did Disney Plus launch again? What year was that? Was that 19? No.
18?
18, I think.
Let's check.
It's been
This is
7
what's
years.
great about fact
7
check.
years.
7
Let's see.
years. That's
When
just slightly longer than the
did-
span of release episodes of the original movies. It was 6 years.
That's true.
Yeah.
Disney
No,
Plus.
sorry,
Oh, wait
yeah, it
a
would've
second.
been
You are right.
77 to 83.
19?
Barely 19.
Barely 19.
November 12th, 2019.
Okay.
November 12th.
Six.
Okay, so
So
Not
is
even
that
6
so that's
years.
when Mando launched. 'cause
Not even
it-
6 years.
not yeah.
What in the world?
Wow.
Isn't it
We've
funny?
gotten
Man.
so much already.
We were talking about the rise and the fall.
It's been 6 years.
It's in November
6 years.
12th.
I have socks that old.
And those are the lucky ones.
They're
Those
the
are
lucky
good
ones.
No,
Yeah.
so when we were texting and deciding pre-cast, a little peek behind the curtain because he's a sentimental
sure,
man.
sure.
No, it's
My
we'll have
Star
another
Wars.
drink.
Oh.
My Star Wars beauty. I don't know what that is. When I was thinking about this podcast episode and thinking about Andor now, still very much on our minds, but in the rearview mirror of not looking forward to new episodes coming out and it being a while before we get Ahsoka season 2 because they're like just starting production on that or just starting actual filming. Thinking about, oh man, this really is, even though we have one more project coming out, this is the end of the, show comes out, a few more months, another show.
Yeah.
Show comes out, 6 more months, another show. Show comes out. There was a few of those shows that we only wait a few months.
Yeah.
And they were all part of this big announcement. Some of them before the Disney Plus Investors Day, or the Disney Investors Day. Some at the Disney Investors meeting where they announced a bunch of these shows. And it's been kind of this. I don't know if you would say phase 1 of Disney Plus because honestly I don't know if there's going to be a phase 2 as far as the TV show stuff
Right.
goes. I think they'll continue with the animation. Obviously there was the Maul Shadow Lord that was the Sam
Yeah.
Witwer animation Maul show, and then
Yep.
they've been doing the Tales stuff. Wouldn't be surprised if I think Visions. They have some things that are going on there. But as far as the TV shows, most of the Star Wars we've gotten. So this is what's crazy. We talked about the date here of 2019. 2019 is the last Star Wars movie we got.
Mm-hmm.
So not only, literally these
replaced.
overlapped each other by just a couple of months because we
Right.
had December.
Yeah.
This is November 12th.
Yeah.
2019, and then the next month, December, is when Rise of Skywalker came out.
Mhm.
And all we have had, as far as live action goes, is these shows. So this has been our Star Wars for the last 6 years.
The Healing episode the week of Rise of Skywalker, and everyone
The
was
way it
like,
lined
"Is that
up.
intentional?"
They-
right.
It was interesting
Yeah.
you using that at the same time. So for the last 6 years, this has been the Star Wars that we've gotten, and it's great because we're right now, again, even though it's not the official end because Ahsoka season 2 is still coming, but as far as for right now, but we have a little bit of a break before Ahsoka season 2. We're ending on a very, very high note with Andor season 2, Andor as a show in general wrapping, and so I'm trying to be clear-headed about this and think of how we felt about these shows when they were coming out, our anticipation for them, then actually watching the show and how did we receive it. Sometimes shows exceeded expectations. For me, I think Andor is one of those.
Sometimes they didn't.
Sometimes I think they were a little underwhelming,
Yeah.
and we want to discuss kind of the specifics of those. But before we get into each show individually and we get to our rankings and things that worked really
Yeah.
well and things that didn't work,
Yeah.
when you look at just the live-action Star Wars TV shows, what are your overall thoughts first when you think of Star Wars TV? Where does your mind initially go? Does it go as a big success? Does it go as, oh, I feel mixed bag? Does it feel disappointing overall? Just overall thoughts first, and then we'll talk about maybe why we think some of this
Yeah.
went really well or some of it didn't go as well.
Yeah.
But Uncle, the overall thoughts when you think Star Wars TV, as someone who grew up like I did, but for even longer, without any Star Wars TV
Yeah.
for decades
Without
and
any
decades.
Star Wars access
Yeah.
because it just went away in 1983.
We didn't have a Star Wars
That was it.
vault.
It
Yeah.
was gone until the early 90s. You didn't see. All you had was your memories.
How many times did you see A New Hope in the theater?
Twice. Same day.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's
Yeah.
in.
We didn't go
it's-
to the movies all the time, though. It
No.
wasn't like-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you waited 3 years and saw Empire.
Yeah.
And you couldn't go back and watch the original. It was just.
No, it was just you had
all
to
you
remember,
remember.
and
Yeah.
And they held it real close, so it never was on. We had cable. It was never on HBO. It was never on any of those
Mhm.
stations. None of those.
Yeah.
Couldn't get a VHS. No way to watch it.
Yeah.
the way people discussed it was however you remember or you saw it in theater.
Yeah, and you got stuff wrong. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I forgot that one.
And then the
Yeah.
action figures eventually start coming out, and you're like, "Oh, that's Walrus Man.
That's what
yeah,
what it
that's
is.
that's Snaggletooth.
Ithorian, I didn't hear that until like 2000. What does that mean, Ithorian? For Hammerhead.
yeah,
I think that I don't know if I would. It's hard to the measure of success. Is it financial or is it
Mm.
rewarding?
Yeah.
For them, it needs to be financial because it's a business.
that's what gets them
Yeah.
making more."
Yeah.
For us, it's about whether it's rewarding, and I've loved what we've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was so good. Even the ones that are going to be low in the rankings,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are moments that are some of the best
Yeah.
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
That is what's interesting when thinking about my list too. Is I think some of my very favorite moments are from some of my lowest ranked shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is odd to me that it's weird that the higher ranking shows are the ones that remind us of the 50-year-old.
Yeah.
Yes.
Movie.
Yeah.
Like that's weird. Why do we go back to that
Yeah.
as the bar? I think it speaks to the special nature of what was created there. Like
Mhm.
it's timeless almost.
Yeah.
I would say successful in that it's created new things, but also covered stuff that I've always wondered, like what happened there, what happened there.
Yeah.
Not always what I thought it was going to be, or necessarily what I hoped it was going to be,
Yeah.
but it continued the story of the characters that I love.
Yeah.
So I would say successful. Not every show has been great, but not every moment of what George created was great.
no.
Yeah.
Not every moment of what anyone creates is great. There are ups and there are downs, with the exception of James Cameron. Everything's
right.
great.
Everything's great.
No,
Everything's
not
right.
everything.
Now, and James Cameron
John
though
Williams.
John
to
Williams.
get it
Everything's
great,
right.
James
I mean-
Cameron goes now before the next one comes out. I'm gonna wait 10 years.
900
Right.
years.
Yes, and spend $1
He's got it
billion
planned.
making this. But guess what? Here's the catch: I'm gonna make $2 billion
gonna
on
make
every one of
$2
these.
billion.
So
Gonna get it
we're
all
gonna
back.
we're gonna get it. Everyone's like, James, the second one on this. He's like, do you understand? It's gonna make even more
I'm
money.
gonna take a
Listen, we're
paycheck
making
every
the
10
second
years.
one. We're making 6 of these things.
Yeah.
6.
Crazy.
I'm gonna be 900.
I still remember being shocked at when Avatar 2, because I watched Avatar when it came out, and it also came out alongside this huge push for these 3D. And it is like the standard for 3D in the theater.
Right.
Because a lot of times I, at least personally, don't necessarily love always watching in 3D. And I think it's distracting. Or I think it's like, oh, it's not.
Yeah.
But when Avatar
did, it was like, this felt like I had to watch it in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Comes out in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go years. And I remember when finally, with The Way of Water, Avatar 2 was starting its promotion stuff. I remember me thinking, do I even care about this anymore? Like, I'm not sure if I even. And then I also thought for sure that I thought for sure that 2009 was this kind of perfect storm, that it led to. It's a combination of the 3D mixed with that time, mixed with some other movies that were coming out. It was something we'd never seen before. That the fact that we now know what to expect, that this will make a fraction of the money. James Cameron's like, actually, I'm going to make it even longer. It's going to be even longer
this
movie.
It's only 2 of 6.
And I'm already going to let you know this time, ahead of time, this is not even the end of it. This is not even halfway through the story.
Right.
So, which usually lessens, because if you. There's a thing about sequels always, or of a middle of a trilogy.
Generally,
there's a lot of people that will go, I'll wait till it finishes and I'll watch all of them come out.
Yeah,
because this doesn't feel like it's essential viewing at the moment, because it's not the end of the story. And then when it comes out and it's even more than the first one and just keeps going, and the movie's even longer, and I'm watching every second of it, like, this is fantastic. James Cameron's like, I know what I'm doing. I'm pretty good at this.
That brings us to what I think is going to be a core element. We'll talk about this later.
Is this for the Cameron cast?
The Cameron cast. No, story.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, that's what drives the best quality of of anything but Star Wars. And when we rank them, I think that will come into play. The story that is told.
Definitely.
Is it about a character, or are we telling a story? If it's about a character, typically those may not hold up to, are we telling a compelling story? Those are the ones for me that are more compelling.
And what's interesting about that, and then we'll take a pause from the Cameron cast, but this ties to the George Lucas thing.
Yeah.
We know Cameron and George Lucas are really good friends. And they've even had those sit-down interviews that were aired, I think maybe on like AMC or whatever it was, because there was this like sci-fi thing they did, like, I want to say maybe 6-7 years ago now. You can find
George
him on
Lucas
YouTube.
was at the TCM Film Festival this year.
Yeah, he was.
Man,
just recently.
I should have gone.
But Cameron and Lucas are very similar in the fact that they both really think it's important to also push the technology forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you brought up James Cameron, because I had last night, just randomly, I was on YouTube watching something, and what popped up was a recommended from, let's see, it would have been like 10 years ago now. It was a recommended, he was doing a sit down for something, and it was just this woman asked him, oh, by the way, have you seen, I know you're friends with George Lucas, have you seen The Force Awakens, the new Star Wars? Because this is right after it came out.
Yeah.
And he said, I have. And then they just kind of didn't give much. And she's like, what'd you think? And he said, I don't want to speak. George Lucas and I actually just had a lengthy discussion about this the other day. I don't want to speak too much on the film itself, because obviously I'm so closely connected to George, but I'm also very fond of J.J. Abrams, and I don't want to judge a movie based on it's already been announced that it's a trilogy, and I want to see where some of these things are going. I will say I think that George's original 6 films really constantly focused from just a production standpoint on pushing the technology forward, where I think that this new one was definitely and not even just the technology, but like visually, like the imagination forward, where this one was definitely more of a retreading or just a reminder of the things you love versus giving you something new you've never imagined before.
Right.
So he said, so I don't want to judge it too. And so it's funny when we're thinking about the Disney Plus stuff, to bring it back to the shows, there is some of this stuff that I think we'll get into that we love because it feels like something we know and we love.
Right.
And then there's other things that feels like, this is so new or so out there or so different that I'm not sure it even fits into what I feel as Star Wars or what I feel of I want in my Star Wars. Or you're questioning things about Star Wars in general that I'm not sure I necessarily
Too much
love.
the same, too different.
And then there's the Mando.
Not enough different.
And then there's the Mando of it all, which at least when it started, especially, and we'll get into the individual shows, had this line of kind of hitting that sweet spot of the period that feels familiar,
but
the volume is pushing technology forward and also giving you visual stuff with Mandalorians and Mandalorian culture that's like, oh, we're familiar with this, but this is not just, hey, do you remember those things you love? Let's just go sit in that for a while.
Yeah.
But it was kind of, hey, remember this era, this feel that you love, this kind of grittiness to it, but also let's show you something you haven't seen before with it, and let's show it in a in a style and all this stuff with the. I love people like the slow burn tone poem stuff that the Mando season 1 is so confident, and yet it feels like it has some like solid story, but it also like takes its time.
Yeah.
Which some other shows
I'm gonna
haven't.
do
So
a little
we'll get
study,
into it. But
and after our cast this next week, I'm gonna do a little study. That's an interesting. How many new things were presented in a particular show movie? Because I don't think any of them can rival episode 4. Because everything was new.
Everything's new, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that.
And we will say, as far as tech, we know it's as much, grief as it gets. Episode 1 swung for the fences.
They did.
It's not as huge of a risk because of episode 4 is we don't even know that this is going to be successful or people are even going to watch this.
Right.
Episode 1, we knew people were going to watch it because of it's Star Wars returning. But we talk about the Industrial Light and Magic clips that are already going around again of the the people, and he's this practical, digital, practical. I know we can do it. I know we can do it. It's impossible. And people are like, "What is George talking about?" Like it again. It was a little flashback to the being in the desert when they're filming the original Star Wars, and guys going, I don't think we're gonna make it. We're not gonna have a movie.
Yeah, what is
and
this?
when they're doing this, they're like, George, you've announced this movie, and the thing you're asking is not possible.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit of
he's editing it 2 weeks before.
Yeah, you've got a little bit of that with one. But so overall thoughts, you think? I know it was long, but you very pleased overall with the not leaving the business aside of it, but
successful to me is not hitting a home run every time.
Yeah,
you get a base hit, you strike out. Overall, I think it's been great. I think it's been really rewarding and fun, and my kids are drawn in. It's brought a lot of people to Star Wars again. It's launched some movie that are coming at least, so I think it's been great. Successful. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I think if you're going like financially, it's hard to separate the shows from the franchise, because from like the Disney era franchise, because obviously you add the movies in there. Star Wars franchise as a whole has been crazy successful.
Yeah.
From a financial standpoint, I mean, they even built an entire add-on to the park at Disney because of Star Wars. So obviously really successful in that regard. But when it comes to I think when you break down each show, and you touched on this a little bit, Uncle, when you break down each show, there's going to be ups and downs. So when I think back on certain shows individually, there are some where I have mixed feelings. But overall, when I'm looking at just Star Wars TV, there, like you said, there are some of the, even in some of maybe my lower ranking shows, some of my favorite moments, and so in all of Star Wars, not just the TV stuff,
right?
So, when I think of it that way, I mean, there's things that I'm watching, and I'm like, I can't watch the Skywalker saga anymore without
changes everything.
Without watching this as part of my watch through, because it holds that much weight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think are there moments in every single show that I would have maybe done differently, or that weren't maybe my favorite, or didn't maybe hit quite like they thought it maybe would, at least for me.
Yeah.
There's those moments, but overall it's been phenomenal. I mean, any more Star Wars content,
Right.
I'll take it, and then I'll go in with an open mind, and I think we can point out things that we weren't our favorite, but overall still love the show.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I will say, even as we go, and we can get into some of the ranking stuff, but even when we do that, even the ones that are my lowest, there's still moments I'm like, I still liked the show a ton. So yeah, I think it's been good, successful.
I've hated every second of it. No,
every single
second. This is not good. We should have cloned Mark Hamill.
Me show a lot.
What you doing over there?
Show.
I have really, really, really enjoyed thoroughly this era of Star Wars television. I think one of the biggest things that people forget about that is possible with TV, and especially once the volume was created, as much as sometimes it gets grief, I think people do need to recognize we wouldn't be getting all of these shows. Now, I'm not even saying all of them use the volume, but we would not be getting the, for lack of a better term, volume of shows if it weren't for these technologies that were created by Favreau and the ILM teams and all the people that helped do this, because they started being able to get shows out in a quicker fashion. Now, I do think there's some positive with that, and there's also some things that you're like, oh man, this feels like if this was not on the volume, this would have felt different or would have felt bigger. Or I think Star Wars is an interesting thing because I have really enjoyed overall the shows that we've gotten. And like you guys have all said, so I won't spend a ton of time on just reiterating the same thing, but even the shows that would be lowest on my ranking have some of my favorite moments and some of the best moments that I've probably ever experienced in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at things overall that have worked or not worked, Star Wars is a tricky, it's a tough, like, it really is like threading the needle, because there is, you want it to feel, at least I think this is something that we've all learned kind of through
I know what you're going to say.
Star Wars
This is
going
true
away
of,
and going
a
away.
A lot of industries, though.
Yeah.
It's got to feel the same.
It's got to feel
It's
the
gotta
same,
be
yet it's
different.
got to be
It has
different.
to be new, but
Music
also
is
And
the
it's
same
it's so tricky. And here's a great example of where this sometimes can go well and can go really well, and where it can fall apart is Galaxy's Edge, which we love. Galaxy's Edge. All three of us have been to Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
Galaxy's Edge has, and I think to their credit, pivoted.
Started adjusting.
Yeah,
Because initially
it was
this is in this time period. This is post episode 7. This is post episode 8.
Yeah,
in
that's
between
right.
episode
It was
8
post
and 9,
8.
basically.
yeah.
And it's specifically this planet Batu, and this is what's going on, and it's this trading outpost, and we want you to feel in real world like I'm a traveler in the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
So what comes with that is there's going to be no John Williams theme.
Right.
There's going to be no Star Wars music.
Mhm.
There's going to be, and
It's
you're
not
there, and
Yeah.
it's supposed
Yeah.
to feel like you're in the story. What that also means is there's going to be no Han Solo walking around. There's going to be no Luke Skywalker, which I guess eventually they could have added like an old Luke Skywalker for that time
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
But again, they've made adjustments since. But this is what the
Yeah, that's how
announcement
it
was at the
started.
beginning.
Right.
There's not going to be there's
No Vader.
there's not even going to be any Mando at that time period,
Yeah.
which was a very difficult thing once Mando becomes the biggest thing they have going in Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Right. At least in Galaxy's Edge.
At least
yeah.
at Galaxy's Edge.
That's
Yeah.
right.
But Galaxy's Edge is the Star Wars. It's Disneyland, Disney World's Star Wars land. You do have you do have other places and stuff you know where they have.
You have to go to Hollywood Studios.
I was gonna say
meet
you have like
Vader,
Star Tours
Yeah.
and
to
all.
meet
Yeah.
Chewbacca,
Yeah.
And you have
to
Star
ride
Tours and things. But
Yeah.
so you have this thing, and I remember initially being in there and thinking, "Wow, this is amazing," and then hearing some people go, "Interesting," and like immediately kind of having questions about it. And I remember thinking, "Oh, that is something they're gonna have to adjust to," because Mando was
Mhm.
becoming all of a sudden this massive phenomenon with Mando and Grogu. They're like, I don't think they can just not have them.
No.
They're now more popular than anything going on in
Yeah.
Star Wars. And then eventually, you're like, I want to see Luke Sky. I want to see not just. I want to see Princess Leia. I want to see, and not just older. Here's an older Mark Hamill looking version of him being in the 60s, but like people want to see Princess Leia just as Princess Leia,
Right.
and people want to see Padme. People want to see Anakin and Obi-Wan, and so they have since pulled that back, and they've started introducing these characters and bringing Boba Fett and bringing in characters out
Mando
there, which I think is a great decision. I haven't been in a few years, so I don't know if they've changed at all on the music thing. Because I know you talked about you've been to Harry Potter World, and going in and hearing the John Williams theme and hearing the music, you're like, it's just such a magical feel that I do think Star Wars, Galaxy's Edge, which it's awesome. But I think that there's times when I was there that I was like, oh man, if I had the Force theme right now, or if all of a sudden, I'm just sitting there and all of a sudden I hear the Han and Leia, theme kick, then I'm like, oh, this would be even more nostalgic.
Which would be more fun, standing on Tatooine with Luke, or watching Luke in the movie? It's more fun to watch Luke in the movie.
Yeah.
It's a
I don't want to actually live in the desert.
It's way more fun to
it.
watch it than to be in it.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's good that they're
So they've made
back.
so. There's been things like that. That's like we want it to be new, we want it to be this. It's interesting, and then I think where maybe some stuff has gone a little too far or hasn't worked as well would be the hotel. That actually was what I was going to say. As far as because that's something where it's like we're going to push it. We now think Star Wars is just this. If it's Star Wars, people are going to go. And there was a moment. I mean, there was.
Realize I'm not paying that to go.
And
I did too. I was like, that's very close.
I don't know. And then when we saw the promotional stuff, we're like, oh. It's just like
that's what pushed us over.
I
was like, okay, and then we saw the promo.
Yeah.
Mm.
So there are things like that feels like it was supposed to be Star Wars, but it's missing whatever it is that's actually Star Wars to us.
That's an interesting thought. What is it?
And that's the hard thing. So I think when
you
start now diving into the shows,
coming off of Galaxy's Edge, though, I felt like they hit it.
Yeah,
like they hit that at Galaxy's Edge. I thought they nailed the feel. I mean, even when it started, they didn't have the different eras of characters. They still hit the feel. But then it's like you hit it here, but then the next thing with the hotel was like, this kind of feels off.
Let's lead us into our rankings here now as we're moving, because I think
hotels. Because
I think your favorite
I'm gonna put
hotels.
best. What we just saw Best Western Plus.
Best
How can it be better than Best? I thought Best was the best.
The Motel 6 that has the
141
that has Salacious B. Crumb, who's he robs you on your way in.
It's awesome.
Well, which is the one that's
got
the Max Rebo band there?
Max Rebo band. That's is that La Quinta Inn?
La Quinta.
La Quinta Inn is Max Rebo's. He's got a La Quinta deal.
La Quinta.
Deal.
All right, let's get into the shows. We're gonna discuss some of the shows and go through
Star Wars
our
ranked.
ranking.
Star Wars ranked. We're ranking the Star Wars live action
So
show.
why don't we rank?
Nate, you
then
didn't do our
discuss?
theme song.
We can
It's
rank.
okay.
And then
We'll edit that later.
we can rank some and then discuss
Okay.
as we go.
Yeah, discuss as we go, because I have thoughts on these that pertain to what we were just talking about as far as I think
the
some
story
examples
thing Uncle mentioned is big too. And
yes.
sometimes that goes into my thoughts without even necessarily really thinking deeply about it. But then I look at it, I'm like,
It's got to be story first.
Definitely the
Yeah,
story.
didn't.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start.
There are 7 live-action Star Wars shows, correct?
List them off in alphabetical order. Go ahead.
Let's all start.
Hey, Ahsoka.
We're gonna
Boba Fett. I don't know after that.
We will start.
Wait, no, that's not out.
Let's start now with because there's 7 live-action shows, correct?
We'll go. Yeah.
Let's start each giving our number 7. We're gonna work our way up to number 1.
Okay, read them all off.
Okay. So I'm just going to read them off, and this is not in any particular order. This is just based on what's on our thumbnail. Skeleton Crew, Mandalorian, Kenobi, Andor, Ahsoka, The Acolyte, Book of Boba Fett.
And what's funny is it feels like there's more.
It does feel like
Because some
more.
of those there's 3 seasons of Mando, so we got that 3 different times. There's 2 seasons of Andor.
2 seasons of Acolyte. Wait.
Darn. There's not.
They're not.
1 season.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be either.
No. Someone about an
so
Acolyte
Skeleton
the other day.
Crew,
I was like,
Mandalorian, Obi-Wan
Simmer down.
Kenobi, Andor, Ahsoka, Acolyte, Boba Fett.
Okay.
Number 7. We are ranking our shows.
Going around.
And what's great is we can we will express when we rank them too.
Yeah.
I think
what
we'll
that
all
means
agree
to you.
on this one.
Because some.
Actually, I don't know.
Well, what's funny is sometimes when you do a ranking, people think, "Oh, that means these guys hate that
That's
show."
bad.
No,
That's
no.
bad.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's the show that I feel the least drawn towards revisiting right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the show that I feel, and we'll discuss it. It might be the show that I feel like had the most lows and the fewest highs.
Mm-hmm.
There's other shows I kind of feel like they were consistently in the middle. I didn't think there was as many bad,
Right.
Negative things, but there weren't as many things that I'm rewatching on YouTube and watching reaction videos of people discovering this amazing thing.
Yeah.
So,
if you were to
number 7?
rank your
Number
family
7.
members, we've done that. We've all done that.
Oh, we have to.
Yeah.
We're all in the same family.
You love them all, but they're different.
We love them all, but someone is last.
And that's next week's episode.
that's
That's next week's episode.
Next week we're gonna rank our
We're gonna
favorite
rank our
family
favorite.
members.
All right.
We'll do that.
Last, lowest, 7. What do you guys got?
Do we say them at the same time, or we just go around?
We'll just go around.
I have number 7. The Acolyte. This is my number 7.
I also have the Acolyte.
Boba Fett.
All right.
Explain yourself.
Explain yourself.
Sorry.
What is he proposing?
It is actually a
Yeah.
huge compliment that Boba Fett's last because my expectations were so high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
more
that's-
of
I
more of an
do-
expectation versus where we
What
landed.
happened? Yeah, that makes
Acolyte,
sense.
I
That's
didn't
a
know what to expect, and
That's a
I was
great
pleasantly
point.
surprised. Like,
Yeah.
oh, there's some cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's a great
Great
point.
moments of Boba
I
Fett,
think Boba
of
Fett was
course.
more disappointing because of that.
Yeah.
So
I think
Or
so.
underwhelming.
it
or however you
factored
wanna say
into
it.
my rank.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think even though we didn't know the story of Acolyte, I think I did find myself really excited about the time period.
Yeah, it's true.
That-
Well, the announcement I thought was the one
That's
that I was
true.
maybe the most
It
excited
was the
about
one
when
I was
the
maybe the
announcement.
most excited about.
Talking about
that
Dark Side
I think
show.
even
and-
though I didn't know the history of the characters, I think there was some disappointment there in how some of the
I
story
was
unfolded.
excited. I didn't have an expectation.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know what this
Yeah.
character is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
now,
that's
again,
why-
that said, there are moments in there when Chimere's going crazy.
Yeah.
I was like,
I know.
these moments are really cool.
Yeah.
Eli's favorite moment of all the TV shows was that.
Yeah.
I like my 7-year-old to watch incredibly
Yeah.
violent Sith
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
flipping
for
out Jedi.
Yeah.
Have to.
We gotta set
Got
the
to.
bar
That's
early.
the thing. If you don't know that this is a cold
it's-
galaxy out there,
I think
are you really even parenting?
He's 8.
I think for
All
me,
right,
for
back off.
Acolyte, I think I just there was you talk about story. I think
Yeah.
story is why it's last for me.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of things there that were cool and had a lot of potential, but I think for whatever reason there were moments that were just a hard sell for me
Yeah.
to understand some of why
I get
it
it.
had happened. And I think, and I will say, I think the task that they tried to take on with Acolyte and
Mhm.
showing this dark side view as to why this, the twins
Yeah.
kind of flipped and how things played out. It just didn't, it just didn't come across. Something was off in the way that it came across. Like, I think the last episode of almost trying to make me feel like
Feel bad
taking
for the
the
bad
side of the
I
bad
was gonna
guy
get-
and
yeah.
almost justifying
guy. Yeah.
the turn and stuff was very. It didn't sell me on that
Yeah.
as much, and I think there
There
were
is a
some moments in the
subtext in
story
there.
that was difficult.
It can be off-putting.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah. There's.
I don't
so-
know. Like, I compare it to Anakin's fall,
Mm-hmm.
and even though I would say in George Lucas's thing, there are things where I'm like, that's a huge jump just in the movie. Now they flesh it out in Clone Wars,
Yeah.
but how do you go from this to what Anakin's doing in the temple
Right.
that quickly?
Mm-hmm.
They flesh it more out in Clone Wars. So there are things like that, but there are moments I think that really hit on a lot of the stuff with Anakin's fall where it didn't feel quite even like that
Yeah.
in this.
Let me
We have
comment on
we
that
are
too.
we have decades of context
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And that's. Let me comment on that too, because one thing about Anakin's fall, even though obviously I don't even think these are necessarily supposed to be like
One
all
to one,
that
yeah.
similar, but as far as someone who is on the light side falling to the dark side, and then us as a viewer watching this happen, and how do we feel about it? What's interesting is Anakin. We did see a number of instances because I think what's interesting about the Acolyte, and even though I ranked it last on mine, I do not quote unquote like hate the show or dislike the show. I was
No.
disappointed, and there's a number of things, but when we talk about this part of it, there was again, there was some weird between the sisters flipping of sides that I'm like, whoa, that felt out of nowhere. That felt really, and I don't mean like, I actually think that what Osha's at the end, which finding out the reveal about Saul and all that had happened, I get the emotional like where they were going, what they were trying to do with that. But her sister like flipping back randomly from I have been killing Jedi to now I flip back to the other side. Because at the show starts, she's been killing. She's already been assassinating, hunting him down.
Right. Yeah.
And then finding out, like, oh, I'm being used. I guess I'm a good guy now. You're like, no, I mean, like, it seems more likely that you would go the way of Maul, which would be like,
I don't like either.
Maul doesn't go
like
good.
anybody.
He's just like, I've been used by Palpatine. I don't now have compassion and a heart. I'm just breaking away from that person, and I'm still gonna go. I've still been living this life.
This
of
person's
murder
also
and all
just this person's just also another target.
yeah, exactly. Like now it's someone else. It's or like Kylo. Kylo going, oh, Palpatine's there. I guess now me and Rey need to defeat Palpatine. He doesn't do that until Ben Solo comes back. He actually thinks, oh, now I've got to take him out
now
too.
I can get my own way.
Or now I've got. It's the same thing with Snoke.
Right.
He eventually is like, I got to take Snoke out because he's in the way of my power.
Yeah.
But this was interesting because bringing it to Anakin, we watch Anakin, I would say, be mistreated, or I would say just being marginalized, or even the way he says, I feel cold when he's a little kid, and Mace Windu's not very nice to him. There's a number of things that happen.
Yeah.
He loses Qui-Gon. But the way the show and the way George presents it to us is not, well, you understand how he got here, and also, like, can you blame him? No, that's not how he said, this is the steps of how he got here, and it's a slippery slope, and even though these things happen to him, he makes horrible choices that lead him to this spot that you never want to get to. And so it's not that it's out of nowhere, and so it's not that we can't understand how he got there, which, like, I think with Osha, we understand how she got there, but what's weird there and what I didn't like as much is it feels like by the end you got there and you're at the end rooting for her to go make that choice.
Yeah.
And then you're rooting for her to
and the
kill
sister's
Saul
like,
at the
you
end.
you got to do what you got to do.
And and which again, that's another thing. That would be like if Anakin and Obi-Wan at the end when they're fighting had this huge disagreement, and he's like, "Oh, I can't stop you. Like, you know, I understand we have a disagreement, and you're probably gonna go murder a bunch of people, but you gotta make your choice, and I'll make mine." Like Obi-Wan would do what he did, which is I'm gonna fight you in this moment, and I will do what I must, because if I am on the side of the light, I don't just accept and let you walk away. So I think it was weird because I think we talked about the way that the Jedi were painted. It was the first time that it felt like not only did these Jedi make mistakes, because I think the Jedi are not
they made
infallible. They make plenty of mistakes. They made tons of mistakes throughout the prequels. I think that's one of the big points. George talking about institutions, and when stuff gets to a certain level of power, there's going to be corruption. Yeah, whether it's governments
but even for those
anything.
who didn't in the show who didn't turn bad. Even the Jedi that didn't turn bad, you still have a like a sour taste in your mouth because you're like, you're all doing the wrong thing. Yeah, because it was a bunch of people, and then you cut to the High Council people, and they're covering up for it, and and so it was a little bit further in the edge of like, oh no, it's not just that what we stand for is good, but people make bad choices. It felt like the institution is actually, it's not that we're falling short of our ideals, but the ideals are not good. Yeah. And so that felt different. That's where I think in the prequels it feels like the problems is not that what our core morality is flawed. It's that we keep straying from it, and because we're people, and because even though they're Jedi, they make mistakes, and they get and fear drives Mace Windu to act certain ways, and fear drives this and this, and it leads down this path where this feels more like at its core, it makes you feel like at the end you should be rooting against the Jedi, which is just it's tougher. So Still great. Still great.
Still
moments.
great. I think that
Still
for
great
me, the
moments.
last note on that is just that I think that the writing was definitely the poorest in my eyes.
Yeah.
There were, and if you have a Star Wars whodunit or a Star Wars murder mystery, and the reveal, like any murder mystery, the reveal kind of falls flat. It kind of makes everything before it feel lessened.
Yeah.
And so I
will
think that was
say,
a hard thing
as
because
we
I
were watching
enjoyed watching it week to week.
Yeah, I
it
was
was
gonna
only
say.
at the end that I actually felt disappointed by what I had been watching
Yeah.
before because
Yeah.
I felt like the payoff
Yeah.
didn't end up coming.
I agree. I will say, giving credit, I do think that
We
the
enjoyed
the
watching it a
mystery,
lot.
the murder mystery throughout watching it live was intriguing. It
Mhm.
was really cool.
It was
to
Basil that
watch
put me
it.
over the top at the end.
Basil.
Yeah, he
Basil. I can't make sense of that character.
I'm not sure where that was going, but
but,
do we all have the same bottom two?
I think Boba Fett's next for
We
Boba
do.
Fett.
Yeah.
We do have the same bottom two.
Yeah.
And we won't spend as long on it. I know we got to keep moving, but for Boba Fett, I think Boba Fett to me has much higher highs.
I think
than,
Uncle nailed
than
it.
Ahsoka. The highs
When
in
he
Boba
said the
Fett though.
For
expectation.
Boba Fett?
Yeah. Yeah.
The highs in Book of Boba Fett of Luke training
Yeah.
Luke training Grogu
I just felt
and
like
then
Even the
it's-
Rancor. Like, people forget the last
Oh,
episode
it was cool.
Was
It was
really
cool. I think it definitely felt a little more definitely felt lower budget than Mando.
These
Yeah.
beasts can feel so
The
Well-
Vespa's chase stuff.
Yeah.
Like it just
Right.
felt like, oh man, this feels like a little more fan filmy
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it felt like not as
Yeah.
cleanly produced and everything. And then also just as far as the writing, the big thing for me, again, talking about a show and at the end, it really did leave a sour taste in my mouth at the end. Boba Fett's like, actually, I don't
Yeah,
think
I
I want
didn't
this
like
job.
that at all.
And I'm like, well, then what did I?
What was the whole show?
What was
I
the-
didn't like
what was
that. part.
So that was a tough one.
Yeah.
And just that we had seen Mando in a time period a little bit further than where this show picks up,
Yeah.
being ruthless. Not Mando. We had seen Boba
Boba.
Fett be ruthless with the gaffy stick, and you're like, whoa, what is going on? And you're like, this, and then you go back and you find out he's actually been changed before that.
Yeah.
That there felt like there's some inconsistencies in
Yeah.
timeline and kind of his approach to the character that
In all of
made
my
me miss a little bit of old
in
Boba
all
Fett.
of my adventures with the Boba Fett character at home,
Yeah.
I never had him as a crime lord. I always had him
Yeah.
as the guy
Yeah.
who would come in with his blaster, take a bounty,
Yeah.
go in and get either a bad guy or a good guy.
Yeah.
I saw him as first episode
Totally.
of Mando.
Yeah, and then I realized they can't make another Mando, but Boba Fett could have had an edge that Mando had a. I don't know. It just
It could have been
didn't
Mando without
feel-
the heart. Like
and it's
without,
a
or like
choice.
him, yeah. Without
they
him.
made a choice for Boba Fett,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I felt like it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I.
Now
was
they did give us.
hoping for.
They did give
Yeah.
us Cobb Vanth. They did give us.
Cad
Cad
Bane.
Bane.
Like
I mean,
there's some awesome stuff.
They
in
gave us
there.
some
Crate Dragon. if
Which
they
in a
did,
like
like-
sense,
really
I
cool
was
stuff.
more
Oh no, Crate
intrigued
Dragon
with,
was Mando.
with the direction of those characters was interesting.
Yeah.
Great
And I-
Dragon.
uh,
And I
yeah.
th-
All right.
and I think
good.
that the I guess Crate Dragon was Mando, right? That was
It
the
was
Cobb Vanth
Mando.
Yeah.
But the expectations
right.
thing is what got me because they were describing it. If you remember, they're
Mm-hmm.
like Godfather in Star Wars, and it just
Yeah.
wasn't that feel. So again, I think sometimes I have more of a little. I have a.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
No,
Yeah.
I have a
Because Michael
problem
was
with
not.
I have a problem with the
Godfather was the
marketing of it.
acolyte. That's
Yes.
what that
Yeah.
was.
I have
it
a
was the
problem.
path from the good to the
Yeah.
dark. That's,
I have a
Yeah.
problem more with the promotion. I think of the marketing or how that was sold because I think it was a
Even
little
the
misleading.
post-credit
of-
scene they gave us is them going in and blasting
Oh, that's what it's.
Yes.
Biz Fortuna and just
That's what
throwing
that,
them on
that
the
felt
ground.
like.
and
That,
they
I
sit
want
on
to
this
see that
throne.
show.
I was like, that's not at all what the show became.
No, and what's funny is I think you could have done that without going the crime lord because like when he sits on Jabba's throne, that to me felt like I am righting these wrongs. I'm sitting here. I take a swig, but I don't think that he's then saying I'm gonna live here. Like, that's not what I'm watching when I watched that
No.
post credit scene. It was I'm doing this. This is me getting back at Jabba. This is me getting back at Bib
I'm
Fortuna.
getting everybody.
And this
Yeah.
is the book
I'm
of Boba
coming
Fett.
for
This
ya.
is my
Yeah.
hit list, and this is going to be some John Wick movie.
It's
where
Wyatt
now
Earp
we're
at the
going to
end
go
of
take out all these
Tombstone.
guys.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
him I'm coming.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought it was.
gonna be
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah, that's what I kind of felt it was going to be like, and I feel like they could have gone that route without
He's
it
a
being
kind-hearted
like,
Boba.
yeah,
Kind
he
of-
was.
Kind Boba.
Yeah. All right. We don't have a ton of time to get
Yeah,
through each
we'll
one.
go a little faster
But,
here. Number 5 now.
yeah.
Did 7,
5.
6, 5.
5. What do you
This
guys
is
got?
interesting. I
I think I know mine.
What's left?
We've
We've got
Ahsoka.
Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka, Andor,
Obi-Wan.
Mando, and Kenobi.
I will do mine.
I know what mine is.
I know what mine is.
Mine is Ahsoka.
Really?
Yes. And I think for me it's going between Ahsoka and Obi-Wan.
Yep.
And for me,
Can I challenge Ahsoka for you real quick?
sure.
Because it's not over yet.
No, yes, I can only, but I can't give it a
Can-
positive bump or a negative bump for
Okay.
that. Just
Fair.
judging on what we did. Now,
Fair.
having said that, I think that the moments in Ahsoka of seeing Hayden Christensen
Yeah.
is I probably enjoy that more than anything in the Obi-Wan show. Or at least it's
That's
on the
been
same
amazing.
level of that versus the Obi-Wan and Vader
Yeah.
last encounter, which I
Yeah,
think was
yeah.
also, to me,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan had a lot more heart. Like, I felt a lot more watching. I think the thing about Obi-Wan, I remember when I covered it, or when we were covering it on here, that I remember thinking, I know this is not a perfect show because I see some of the writing flaws. I see some of the
Yeah.
budget constraints. I can't help
But
the
you
way
felt.
that this show makes me feel.
Yeah, Obi-Wan
And like,
Yeah.
even though the chase stuff
Leia's-
wasn't great, chasing like when Flea's chasing her,
Yeah.
but also seeing a young Leia and talk about, and him saying these are the characteristics of your mother, this you got from your father. Like I was brought to
Mhm.
tears watching
Yeah.
that.
I mean, the Obi-Wan Vader scenes.
I think the
Especially
first
the
Vader
last
scenes in
scene.
Obi-Wan actually were not as great.
Well, that's
where
true.
it
The
felt very
fire part.
soundstagey and
The
like
fire
that
scene
wasn't
and the-
great. But the second one was like, now this is amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
here.
like a must watch for.
Ahsoka is hard because I think I judge it on I have such a fondness for Rebels. And I just rewatched Rebels recently with my son, my 3-year-old Isaiah, who loves Rebels. And there was a lot of Ahsoka to me that I don't feel as I didn't feel the emotion as much in it. It felt like a lot of stuff I should have really loved. Now, it doesn't mean that I didn't like the show overall. But it was like we talked about some of so like the having Ezra be away for so long and then getting him. There was part of it of me battling, and again, it's just the real world of trying to. Okay, I'm picturing this person as an animated character now as a real character, and I'm immediately judging. Is that how I've always kind of felt he's
Right,
like, or is that how I feel?
Yeah.
Is she playing Hera the way I feel like she would? Is
Mhm.
Ahsoka playing the way that I would
Yeah.
play?
Yep.
And there's some of that I felt was just a little slow. I think the early episodes of Ahsoka are pretty slow.
Fight
when
scenes are a little slow.
the fight scenes are very slow.
Yeah.
But even just
Brought that
slow
up.
in pace as far as the
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson like brooding Ahsoka felt
Yeah.
like that lasted longer than I kind of would have enjoyed at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
Now I think that's part of it.
Mhm.
She comes back to life, and
She does.
that's in the show. But I think it's maybe a little bit more of a slower watch at the beginning.
Ahsoka's a
doesn't
more
it?
distant character.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the perspective that Obi-Wan does. So
Yes.
it does
Yeah.
feel she's not ready to embrace all of the huggy, lovey. It's just not.
Yeah.
I will say
Yeah.
I can
It's
be
not where she
convinced on this.
is.
Like I do feel like day to day this kind of flips for me because like I do think the Balin stuff is my favorite stuff from the show. I thought the Thrawn stuff was pretty good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say to me it was like home run.
No.
Right.
I think for some of it I thought it,
Thrawn's got to get his own show.
yeah it
That's-
feels a little like
Yeah.
we're
Or
trying
movies.
to yeah
Like,
we're
I
trying
think
to
the
jam in
overall-
the Thrawn stuff into
Yeah.
this, which kind of feels like a whole separate show that
Yeah.
I wish they could flesh out in a much. If you give me a Thrawn in the style of like an Andor, like just
Yeah.
a Thrawn style
yeah.
of
Perfect.
military, it'd
That'd
be
be
like
perfect.
insanely
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is and also not to be super critical, but I do think there is something that Filoni, from a writing standpoint, I think there is a little bit of you can kind of see his animation style writing come through because he was solely responsible for writing all those.
Yeah.
That I feel like some of the dialogue felt a little animation-y
Oh.
versus I think the way Skeleton Crew is written is very tightly written.
Yeah.
Even though it's written for a younger audience.
Yep.
It's very specific with its word choice. It's very specific with
Sure.
I was just even rewatching Wim going, John's not a good guy. He's trying to get us. Like that's exactly how a kid would say. He's not trying to kill us. He's
Not
trying to
kill
get
us,
us.
right.
And you're like it immediately was like that is exactly nailing how a child talks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some Ahsoka stuff I thought not my favorite, but there was not a ton of lows in Ahsoka.
Right.
The highs of the Hayden Christensen stuff, I've probably rewatched that as much as anything, maybe aside from Luke returning in season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely love it, but it's just the Obi-Wan. Now, both of them I have very big problems with impaling. I'm completely done with people getting impaled by a lightsaber and surviving. I will say that. I was thinking about that for both these shows because they both suffered
Hard
from that.
stance.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah. I think
If you get stabbed, in to honor my boy Qui-Gon, if Qui-Gon can go out like that, so can Sabine.
It's weakening.
And so can Reva got stabbed twice in the same
show.
In the same show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And no one was like, "This is a bad idea."
Yeah. I know we got to get to the other shows.
Yeah. Sorry,
Obi-Wan.
those are my thoughts. I kind of did both. I tried to go a little faster. I did both Obi-Wan and Ahsoka for me.
Obi-Wan is my.
Is your fifth?
Obi-Wan's mine. Obi-Wan's mine. And I think again,
Great moments.
even though some of the moments are my favorite in all of Star Wars, I think some of the budget and some of the story, even just the sneaking her out in the coat and stuff. There were moments that just weren't.
How about
I've
this?
always
weren't my
struggled with
favorite.
the Obi-Wan storyline. It's never been comfortable to me.
Yeah.
You just mean in general, Obi-Wan? Yeah.
The greatest living Jedi is going to stay on Tatooine and
Yeah.
just watch from a distance. That was necessary for 4. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
It didn't be necessary for 60 years.
Yeah.
It just it put him in a position of, I don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't. I've always struggled with that particular
Yeah.
storyline.
Yeah.
You know? The Qui-Gon stuff in there was awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Anakin stuff, great.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
Is there anything
I
about to bring that up too that you've ever struggled with about Yoda also just going into
sure.
hiding
Yeah.
that you're like
Yeah.
It was
how
necessary
come
for
they
those
give
shows, but it's not.
How
it
come we
doesn't-
give Luke
Lucas-
such a hard time for his decision
right?
in 8?
He's
But Yoda's-
potentially
and
only,
seven.
the
But
only
Yoda's the greatest
justified
master
choice
of all
was
time.
his.
But Yoda's like going to hiding, and I never will return either. Like
No.
he's on Dagobah until
Yeah.
the day he dies.
Yeah.
And it only takes Luke finding him. Yoda doesn't go out. I mean, they keep eyes on him because
that's
of
right.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
But as far as he doesn't think, okay, eventually now I'm going to come out of hiding. Even the rebellion starts,
And it did-
he doesn't get reconnected with
It
Mon
was,
Mothma. or
it was
anything like
fine
that.
because George wasn't writing all of the stories.
No, it was
He was just telling a story of a reclusive leader who
yeah.
was,
Yeah.
had
You
failed
find
and
the
just
backstory.
pulled
Yeah.
away, and then he had to
Yeah.
find him. It was great.
Yeah.
It was a great vehicle for 5, but
Yeah.
For sure.
The thing I will say about
Doesn't-
Ahsoka, and I do think there's some flaws here and there. I do think the story, like seeing the creation of some of the new characters, like well, I'm drawing a blank, but Balin and
right.
Shin, I
Yep.
think were really cool.
which is tapping an
Um,
interesting thing we're going to get to with Andor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all drawn to the new characters.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I think I think it was cool.
Interesting.
I think those characters were well done, and I do just find it seems like Ahsoka is more of the Star Wars like realm that's like out there, and then Andor is the like most humanistic
Yeah.
like side, and then Ahsoka's like the sci-fi world
Yep.
between
Yes.
worlds.
Yeah, it's fantasy. Probably most fantasy.
The most
of
fantasy,
it
and I
all.
actually appreciate the range of that, and so I think I'd give Ahsoka credit in a sense that story just as much as like Andor is so intriguing, and it's my, I mean we'll get to it, but it's my favorite show.
Yep.
I still think that even on the absolute contrast of that with Ahsoka, I also find very interesting to learn more about.
That's a great
that
point.
world of Star Wars.
Yeah.
That I gravitate, I think, naturally more toward the Ahsoka show than like Obi-Wan in a sense because of
That's
the
a great
story
point.
in a
Mhm.
sense of that way. 'Cause
Right.
I'm like, it's shooting for something that no other show can do.
No, right.
I will say
True.
the excitement
true.
I do have for Ahsoka season 2, I think could definitely push it past
Yeah.
Obi-Wan
We'll do this
because
again.
it has the what that has though is this legendary like Arthurian Knights of the Round Table Holy Grail. We're
does.
on this search.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
then
no
we
other
get there
show
and there's
can
the
really
statues and
has,
we
yeah.
have we're talking about Mortis now.
Right.
And all this stuff, Morai
Mhm.
shows up on
Yeah.
his shoulder there, and all this stuff that you're like,
Force Ghost Anakin.
this feels
I mean,
big in
Yeah.
a cool galactic, like
yeah.
not even big in like the
Clone Wars
the Rebel
flashbacks
versus
were
the
great.
Empire.
And even
This
though
feels
I
like
do
a
think
spiritual big of good versus
Yeah.
evil.
Yeah.
and like finding out the secrets of the galaxy stuff.
Yeah.
That I do love the swing for the fences stuff that they've done
Yeah.
in Rebels and Clone Wars. That feels great to see in live action.
And even though I do think Ahsoka's character, I agree with what you're saying, Mike, that her like the cold-heartedness a little bit, I think went a little too
Which
long.
I get in the story, but
And
just
I
felt like it
understand that
lasted
was
long when it's a short
That was
series.
the purpose of her character, was
Yeah.
kind of like to let some of that go and come back to
Sure.
be more in tune with like her feelings and stuff. But I will say the flashbacks, the younger portrayal of Ahsoka in that, I don't feel like I felt that from her. She was more emotional and talking with Anakin about like, why are we here? What's going on? And so there were elements of that I saw in her character that were really cool.
I don't like that in any of the shows so far we have not gotten on screen, and maybe it's because of the de-aging
Padme?
stuff. No, well but we have not gotten an Ahsoka Luke conversation about Anakin.
Yeah, and we might in season 2.
But I don't know if Luke. I think Ahsoka and Anakin will talk again because they've had their thing. But do we think Luke Skywalker would show up again? I don't know because of the way that technology and all the of the just even the recent like Darth Vader, James Earl Jones voice stuff with like video games and things going like awry.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know if we're going back to. I don't know if.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Well, obviously they would have Mark Hamill.
Could be.
No, I just don't know if we're.
All right,
going
next.
that way or not, but we'll see.
Next on the list, so you had Ahsoka, we had Obi-Wan.
Now we're in our top 3 now.
After that,
Oh wait, no, yeah, Ahsoka,
Four,
Obi-Wan, and now, did you do?
So we
So
haven't.
wait, have you done number
I think
4 yet?
I think
Four.
my next
4 would be next.
is maybe Ahsoka would be after Obi-Wan for me. And I think that could actually go higher based
That would
on
be your number
season
4.
2. I think
It's-
with where
it's
season
hard.
2 goes, I
It's-
think that's where it could go.
It's actually for me between Ahsoka and Mando.
That's what I was between the two.
I'm gonna go with Mando.
Mando for number 4.
Number 4.
I like it.
Yeah.
Explain. Show your work.
I feel like we.
I like the take because I feel like a lot of people that are watching the show will just be like, "Here's this. Here's this.
There's
These are the
been-
top
Yeah.
2 and this."
I'm only doing that because I feel like Mando is farther along, and I have a better idea of what
Yeah.
the whole picture is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good point.
And there have been a number of avenues that have taken me out of the pathway
Yeah.
enough
Yeah.
that I feel like I know where we're going, and I feel like the end result is not going to surpass what Ahsoka.
I like that. That's a
Well,
good
yeah.
thought. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I can see that
Could
too.
be we rank this after Ahsoka season
I
2,
think
and I like, oh no.
I'll be
Also,
honest.
you
I
have-
think Mando holds its
Season 1 of
place.
if we did this after season 1 of Mando, season 1 of Ahsoka, Mando's
Yeah, I was gonna say
top
I
head
think
and shoulders.
two,
Yeah.
I agree, and I think the reason I have Mando higher is solely on the back of season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. We
You're saying
talked about
season
it a
3
little.
drags it down for you.
I
so
think
much.
season 3 drags it down a lot for me,
Yeah.
and I still enjoyed season 3, but I think
I
my
did too.
my expectations going from how season 2 ended, and then feeling like the story just completely went a totally different direction that didn't make too much sense to me
Mm-hmm.
was like
Mhm.
the whole buildup of the first 2 seasons was Mando becoming more humanistic and
I'm laughing about something
and
else.
taking his helmet off and becoming more humane,
Yeah.
essentially, and not just a robot of a person.
Yeah.
And following this creed, but actually realizing I can do what I want, like I need to do. And his connection with Grogu just completely took a back seat to the whole season 3. It made the story of season 3 not make as much sense to me.
No.
I'll
I
comment
agree.
on Mando now too, instead of waiting for when I rank it too.
What's going to be next is Ahsoka for me.
So you're saying Mando 4,
Mando, then
Ahsoka
Ahsoka.
3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Is
Okay,
that the
good.
other way for?
So for me, I had just done Ahsoka, Obi-Wan,
So Mando
And
is
then-
now.
and then Mando would be third.
Yeah,
would be
and
third
that's
for me.
Mando
It
for
is,
me.
okay.
So I also don't have Mando in my top 2.
That's me too.
And for the same reason, I think if I just did season 1 and season 2, because I'm a big fan of season 2 also, I will say season 1 and season 2 are different. Season 1 is this kind of contained thing.
But season
2,
1 put their thumb on.
yeah.
yeah.
This is the guy. This is the.
Season 2 expands and starts connecting to other Star Wars a little bit more,
Yep.
yeah.
which I think has some of it I really loved. But you are bringing in now Bo-Katan You're bringing
bringing in Luke.
You're bringing in Luke. You're bringing in, and some of that I really love. Cobb Vanth, which was really cool because that's something that's just from like a book that they bring in. And
the remnants of the Empire. We
Boba,
start seeing
Boba, Fennec Shand, all these things like becoming this bigger kind of team up thing. But season 3 for me, if we talk about disappointing things that we talked about, if we just ranked season 3 of Mando, I might say it's maybe my most disappointing thing of any of if it was a separate show.
Yeah.
And we ranked all of the things. That doesn't mean I don't think season 3 of Mando to me is less enjoyable or I would be less likely to watch it than I would be maybe The Acolyte. As a whole, to me it was more disappointing because we had this great buildup of these 2 seasons, and I do think there is something to the fact that I think that Mando, and I'm not saying I want it to end. I do feel like if Mando ended after season 2, it would have kind of been a perfect ending.
Yeah.
He gets him to Luke, that's the end of the story. Now, I also understand, I wasn't rooting for that. I wasn't like, good, don't do any more, because also I'm excited for the movie coming out.
Yeah, right.
But if I'm thinking of my excitement for the movie, the reason I'm not through, and I am excited for the movie, but one of the reasons I'm not through the roof excited for the movie is because of season 3 of Mando.
Yeah.
And I think that it was a lot of, we built up this, and then I felt like we backslid with the decisions with the helmet, with the decisions with the Darksaber. There were a number of these things that are like, oh, we spent this whole thing, and now it's supposed to be these 2 against each other, and now he's going to give it up. And he kind of loses on a technicality of this and this, and then there was just things that felt like, oh, that the helmet stuff felt like a complete reversal of what 2 seasons were going, but then also just the weird.
I'll be right back.
You can always have weird, wacky stuff, for sure, but felt like a couple of the episodes felt like, man, we only have 8 episodes of this show,
right?
And we're spending a couple of them that are clearly not.
Can I just say it out loud?
Yeah, say it.
Jack Black and Lizzo.
Yeah, I did not.
What happened?
I did not like that at all.
Like, that's the second to last. Wasn't
it was
second
like
to last episode.
I remember us podcasting and going, I think the next episode is going to really take off. And then we get to that and we go, well, now, guys, we have 2 episodes left.
Skadoosh. Like,
Skadoosh.
What are we doing? I like Jack Black.
In the end of time.
I like him.
I know, I did too.
Felt like it was a diversion.
It just felt like a weird, and I'm not blaming Jack Black because he didn't write it. He didn't write it, but
and you're gonna say no to that? I would say no to that.
Now I will say, because you bring up when my last point on the Ahsoka, I know we'll have to wrap in a few minutes here, but on Ahsoka, that makes me excited is some of the things with taking time and having other shows come out. I hope that season 2 of Ahsoka improves on the things that it was lacking.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if they don't improve the choreography.
Yeah.
I would be shocked. That just means they have not listened at all to or even just watched for all the things that I maybe felt disappointed with about Acolyte. The choreography is insanely good.
It's great.
And you can't be someone as smart as Dave Filoni and watch that
and
then watch yours and go,
I'm not changing this at all.
Yeah, I think that we need to speed this up.
Right.
And I think for Dave's now again, just because you watch a show with good writing doesn't mean you become a great writer. But I think also him watching Andor, I'm not saying he's going to make Ahsoka season 2 like Andor by any means, but I think there's also like they've really raised the bar. Mm-hmm. Let's tighten this up a little bit. Yeah. Like let's make sure now if we're doing season 2 and this is the final season of Ahsoka, I expect Ahsoka season 2 to be significantly better than season 1. If you're asking me, I would predict that.
I think so.
And I think that they had a hard task with season 1 of Ahsoka because Ahsoka, more than any other show, if you have not watched Star Wars Rebels, you don't know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on. You're vaguely familiar with who Ahsoka is. If you didn't watch any of the animated shows, you're just like, that's the Jedi from Mando season 2 that I don't know anything about.
Don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I have I was tying into Mando there of why I would have Mando as third after some of those others is I do think that the first two are so good. Like to me, season 1 incredible, season 2 still really good.
Yeah.
With some great highs. Season 3 was so significantly down for me that I was kind of like, ugh. It almost soured me on, not soured me. It doesn't make me not like the first 2 seasons, obviously, but it makes me less excited for the whole thing as a whole. Yeah.
Do we have the same top 2?
We do.
We do. Which I
Yeah.
think is exciting because who would have said coming in, I for both these shows, shocked that I have these in my top two.
Shocked.
Because even when they announced Skeleton Crew, I was like, huh?
It's gonna, yeah.
What?
Right.
This is just something. You're like, what is this?
I was like, Acolyte sounds
That
great.
was a
Skeleton Crew
Jaws. That was a
sounds
Jaws
okay.
throwback right there. Did you do that on purpose?
No.
You holler Barracuda. People are like, huh? What?
Huh?
You holler shark. You got a panic on your hands on the 4th of July.
There it
You
is.
say, huh?
The great.
What?
You,
Sorry, it's 50 years. June 20th. June 20th.
it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
when do I vote again for that mayor? Because what a mayor. The greatest
What
mayor
a
in
Just
the
watched
history
a
of-
movie. That was a great line. What was that show I was watching? Hey, just so you know, the mayor's still the mayor in Jaws 2.
Oh, yeah, wait, I
What
saw
was
that
that
too.
from?
I saw that.
What was
is-
that?
I'm trying to think of what movie that is because it's so.
There was an argument about following what he says or what the mayor says.
Yeah.
Because just
but
so you
he's
know,
still, he's still the mayor in
mayor's
Jaws
still
too.
the
He
mayor
doesn't
in
even
Jaws.
vote out of
what was
office
that
after
movie?
that.
What was that show?
How do I know that too? Because I've seen that also.
Mobland?
That's
No.
hilarious.
I've been watching
hilarious.
Mobland.
Great.
I
All right,
think
top
yeah.
two, and we'll go
We'll-
fast. I
we
know
got-
the
we only
last
got a
few
couple
here.
minutes.
Is
So
Skeleton Crew second?
Skeleton
Skeleton
Crew
Crew
and
is
then
second.
Andor, obviously.
Andor.
Let's do quickly Skeleton Crew.
Okay.
So
Skeleton Crew, I would
Both
say
for the same reason.
Skeleton
would
Crew
say
is delightful.
Both for the same reason.
Yeah. The story
Actually.
the story I think of both are the strongest
Mhm.
story of all the shows.
Yeah.
and it's
The
just showing you
dialogue,
stuff you're
the
familiar
dialogue's
with.
the best
Yeah.
in all the shows, so the writing I think's the best.
The story,
Um,
the heart. You care about the way, and again, not to jump to Andor, but the way that you actually care about Cyril Karn. Like it's a tragic
Mhm.
character.
It is.
Yeah.
The way that you're invested in everything he's doing.
Honestly, his character
It's-
reminds me of like Breaking Bad. There's moments where you're like, oh, I feel bad for him, and then you're
Right.
like, I hate this guy.
I
You're
know.
also
Like,
he's doing these things.
you're also like he's a
this
few
guy is
decisions
terrible.
away.
You're like, this guy's terrible. He's almost on the verge of psychotic. Then you come back and go, oh wait, no, he really was just
He
like
could- he-
totally.
He could get a
manipulated.
blaster and mow down an entire city.
or he could
Yeah.
join the rebellion.
Or he could tell him
I saw
about
the
it.
actor.
Completely.
I saw the
It's
actor who
like-
played him, who just did a
great.
recent
It's
interview,
like,
who said
man.
he feels like that he's a guy he's tragic because he's a few good decisions away from actually joining the rebellion.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because what he cares about is actually
justice.
this justice,
That's
this
right.
like
Is
law and
helping
order.
people.
But again, the Empire's coding of the law and
Tell me
order
he's the
is
most. He's potentially the most moral character in the whole show.
he's the one who's investigating.
middle.
He's
He's in the
investigating a
wrong.
murder.
He doesn't want to kill people like Andor does. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
Andor
Yeah.
murdered.
This is
Andor
not-
killed 2 cops, and he's following them to try to
get to
get after him.
justice.
Now he becomes obsessed with it,
Yeah.
Yeah, he makes mistakes.
His own
Yeah.
issues take over.
but it's
Yeah.
Eats too much cereal.
Yeah,
I mean, his name was Serial Karn.
I mean,
yeah.
overcoming his mother—that's a huge feat.
And
Yeah.
also Uncle Harlow.
But yeah, and then I think for Skeleton Crew,
is just
again, the
delightful,
story
man.
was just so shockingly good and had no expectation. Like other than like Andor, we know the time period, we
Yeah.
know what it's leading up to. We know Andor.
Yep.
Skeleton Crew, we didn't know anybody.
There are some. There are
and it
some
was
shows that I watch because it's on. I can't wait to see that. There are other shows that I'm like counting down. Andor, I would count down,
Yeah.
and I would sit at 8 o'clock or as soon as I
Yes.
could
Yeah.
get back if we had a training or
Yeah.
something, and I would watch. I watched all 3 every
Yeah.
time, and that's put
Yeah.
me at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. They were
Yeah.
just
It's
so.
so
Skeleton
good.
Crew was similar. Like I'd watch it as soon as I could.
Yeah. I mean,
and
we got
just
back and we're
loved
watching
them.
it together.
I know.
We hadn't done that in a while.
We haven't.
It was so. Yeah.
It was so good. I Skeleton Crew, and I know we're almost out of time. Skeleton Crew, we talked about when we were covering it, and this is that fine line. Skeleton Crew was a nod not to old Star Wars,
Nodwood.
but to
Nod
was
to
a
nod.
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 Was
Nod
not
to
a nod or an
Not a
homage
nod.
to old Star Wars,
Right.
but to the stuff that inspired original Star Wars. It was the Amblin feel.
It was a nod
It
to-
was the
yeah.
it was, and so I think what some of the sequels, even though I'm a big fan of the sequels, what the sequels, in particular Force Awakens, which I love Force Awakens, but got justly criticized for, and I get why JJ went that way. We're coming off the prequels,
Right.
where everyone says we got out of line, and he says let's bring it back. And if you really watch the promotional stuff for Force Awakens, in fact on the Blu-ray, or even if you go on Disney Plus now and you watch like the behind the scenes stuff, they are hammering. They don't mention the prequels. They are hammering you over the head with
Original.
Mark Hamill. I still remember these are real sets, practical effects.
Right.
You know this Star Wars, but you don't know this story. And like he's like, they're essentially saying, we know the prequels scared you away.
Yeah.
Some of you guys.
Yeah.
This is gonna bring you back. This is the real thing. This is but because of that in
Then
story,
everyone watched it and said, "I love the prequels."
yeah, but then
are
in
so
story,
good.
but then in story, and JJ even said afterwards, maybe Starkiller Base was on the nose as far as we already had the Death Star.
Yeah.
And it kills planets, and now we're gonna do this, and it kills
And
like
Star-
multiple
And
planets.
Starkiller named after
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so there were things that felt, there was even like it's like a trench run, like I get it, I get the parts that felt like too familiar, but Skeleton Crew is great because it's like I feel like I'm watching E.T. but I feel like I'm watching Star Wars. But it's also pushing the boundaries. I've never seen Suburbia Star Wars.
No.
Yeah.
I've never seen Star Wars classrooms. At least not in like an animated, because I know they have the Academy and stuff.
Yeah.
In some of the animated shows, but in live action.
Yeah, we
I
saw a
haven't
little
seen
bit
it.
in Mando.
Yeah. Well, true.
We
True.
did, yeah.
We get a little bit of Grogu sitting there,
sitting-
puking up some cookies.
Some cookies.
But as far as like actual go to work,
yeah.
they're doing like
like a
microwavable
Wim's getting
dinners.
caught
Normal
playing
life.
on his Wim's
Normal
getting
life.
caught playing on his
Love-
computer.
How
and he
about his
turns it
Wim's
off.
dad? Nothing like a home cooked meal, and it's like this, hungry man dinner. And
Right.
it's great.
Yeah,
but I just love it. It's
the
so
writing. It comes down to the writing
And
and the
I
story.
think between Skeleton Crew and Andor, there are two. I was trying to think, two characters that we'd ever heard of before. I think.
Oh yeah, that are in
characters.
those. Yeah,
I mean, shouldn't say that. When you get later in the show and you get
Yeah.
some of the other characters, but two characters running
it.
through the show, so everything was new.
yeah.
A lot of it was new.
I mean, was there
and it was a
anybody
good
in
story.
Skeleton Crew we knew?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So
Andor, you had some,
Andor, you had
the
Mon
Rogue, you had the
Mothma.
Rogue
No,
One characters.
nobody.
we had Mon
That was it.
Mothma and
Yeah, Mon Mothma and Saw
and Saw
and Cassian
and
Three.
Andor.
and then
yeah.
So, but those are Rogue
Well, and,
One.
yeah,
Mon
and
Mothma
Mendelsohn.
was the
Yeah.
older one, and then we had some
Yeah.
other characters later.
yes,
But driving most of the story, it was new stuff
Yeah.
totally.
in a
Yeah.
familiar setting.
And yeah, like you said, writing, dialogue, story carried, and that's why they were so good.
Also, the amount of the
yeah.
meticulous nature of like what it takes to actually create a great, not just a prequel, but you're fitting in between this block of we actually can't go just as far back as we want either
Right.
with Andor because there's established timeline stuff that you can't step on. Again, I compare it to like a Better Call Saul. It's so good. Like it's so easy for me to be like, well, I already know what comes out after this. I'm less invested in this, and yet Andor had me more excited. Like I was excited to immediately pop on Rogue One because of Andor.
Right.
Not like, all right, now let's get back to Rogue One. It was like, I can't wait to reimagine Rogue One now because I look at Cassie and I look at these characters in a different light.
I have a bold prediction, and it's probably not going to come true.
And
But
take us home, Uncle.
Do we
This might
ever
be our ending
get?
here.
Do we ever get back? I was laughing about this before. We're going to wind it down. Do we ever get back to the days when we would have an hour television show and there were 24 episodes a season, like the days of Lost?
Ugh.
Does that ever happen? Because the scope of that
you
does
mean for
not
Star Wars or just anything?
Star. Here's my prediction.
For Star Wars,
is-
it's probably too expensive.
My prediction is they scale back the productions. They tell better stories with episodes that are a longer season with a smaller investment, but lean into the story.
Yeah.
And they let the movies be huge and cinematic and the TV
I would
shows.
love that.
I think they're going to try to get back.
Give me a more serial.
They should.
I
yeah.
think.
They should.
Because
Or-
if the
or
story
give me
is
more,
good, you can tell that
slow burn drama.
without spending $100 million on a TV show for
Which
5
I think
episodes.
is why they'll
Yeah.
always
Don't need to.
Which I think is part of the reason why they will always continue to tell animated stories too,
Yeah.
because they can do exactly that.
Yeah. Somehow network television can still do it.
Yeah.
They keep doing CSI. They keep doing the 911 shows.
Yeah.
These are like hour-long dramas that they run. I don't know how many episodes a season,
Yeah.
but they keep doing it, and they keep and they work.
It's
Yeah.
true.
I think there's a way, and they don't
Some way to do
feel
it.
they don't feel cinematic. They feel like TV shows,
Yeah.
but that's
But
what
people
they
watch 'em.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an
Story driven.
That's the
there's a
hard thing
space
is
that you can do
story
it
driven.
with
Yeah.
characters.
the hard part about Star Wars is that we as a fan, and also what they're trying to do is we want to feel like the movie,
Yeah.
but be on TV, and there has to be some sort of
There's a
line
middle.
that's like
Yeah.
there isn't. If you want to get Star Wars in your home on TV, you have to accept that it's going to feel different.
Yeah.
Or else we're just not going to be able to do. We're going to do very limited, very
And the
few
stories will
episodes. It's going to be
suffer.
small.
episodic.
Yeah.
That's what I'm. Episodic. It doesn't have to be one story runs the whole thing. It could be Star Trek-ish.
Yeah.
Episodic, where we have
Could
a
be
set
Poker
of
Face.
characters.
I'm watching Poker Face season
Yeah.
2 right now. It's fantastic.
We have a set of characters
So good.
that do progress, but the stories
Yeah.
are episodes in their lives,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of
Yeah.
shows, and it runs over a period
Yeah.
of time. I think that's what Star Wars TV could become. I hope it's good. I think
Yeah.
it could
I love
be.
it. I think
I
it
If
could
it's a
be.
so.
good story and
Yeah.
you like the characters, why not? Put
Yeah.
somebody way out,
I think it could.
and they're
Yeah.
on their journey, and they're
Yeah, it could for
experiencing
sure.
events and things.
Maybe Ryan Gosling will do it.
Maybe Ryan Gosling.
Nate, where can the people find us?
There
This
you
was a
have
fun
it.
one.
Thanks for tuning in, talking live action Star Wars TV shows. Again, we know Ahsoka season 2 is coming out, but aside from that, it seems like a bit of an end of an era for the time being, with no future announcements on Star Wars shows. So let us know what you guys think. Let us know your ranking. Let us know what you're hoping we'll get in the future of Star Wars TV on Disney Plus, and what movies you're excited about. Starfighter, we got Mandalorian and Grogu coming up. So if you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and smash the notification bell. We'll catch you guys on the next one. And as always, may the Force be with you.
You experienced live action Star Wars television?
Yes, I was once a Star Wars podcaster, same as your father. Before the dark times. Before the end of Star Wars television.
We really think it's the end. You think it's the end?
I think season 2 is the end for maybe
what
5
you
years.
see as
at
the
least.
end,
think
I
it's the end.
see as only the beginning.
I like that.
I think something will. I think they will. They haven't announced it yet. But I
They've
think
announced it.
something's coming. Something good.